Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Chintan Chats. It's very exciting to have here Ananda Banerjee. You've probably read his byline. He's a journalist and writes on environmental issues, but particularly tigers that he's been tracking for over 2 decades. He's been traveling to tiger reserves. He kind of understands the big picture, the small picture, and I've personally been reading and learning a lot from him about tigers. And I thought we would have a chat today about this huge, big cat that we all love to love. Hi, Anindo. Thank you for being here at the Chintan Chats.
Thank you. Thank you, Varti, for having me in this Chintan podcast. It's a real pleasure to chat with you always.
Great, then let's get started. So, the first thing I really wanted to pick your brains about was we know that there are approximately, say, just approximately 3,500 tigers in the country.
Yeah.
But we also know that we're seeing a lot of them outside tiger reserves. I mean, for example, the whole Tarai region, whether you look at Pilibhit, where tigers are in the sugarcane fields, or you look at, the case in 2019 where the tiger, and you were, in fact, talking to me about it before this, where, the poor fellow traveled 3,000 kilometers from Maharashtra to Telangana, up and down and up and down. And so there are a lot of tigers outside tiger reserves now,
Yeah.
because tigers are territorial and they need a lot of space.
Yeah.
Each tiger, 20 square kilometers at the very
It depends.
least.
It depends on tigers to tigers. But to begin with, let me start by saying, there's a real boom in tiger population in India, and we have done exceedingly well in bringing up the numbers. But the wild in our imagination, the wild spaces in our imaginations, and the wild in reality is very different. If today, if you're going to juxtapose just three maps, the forest map of India with overlay with the road and the rail network map and the people living, so there is hardly any space. You will see human imprint everywhere. Even within tiger reserves, there are villages and all. So, but in 50 years, last year we celebrated the 50 years of Project Tiger and all, which has been a great success, not only in India but in globally. From 9 tiger reserves we've gone to 53. We have secured, when it began in 1973, it was around 18,000 square kilometer. Now we have some about 75,000 square kilometer of tiger reserves. But most of the tiger reserves are very small, as rightly as you said. It's a small spaces, and with this baby boom and the new tigers, they will disperse, and they will come into human habitations, and which right now you are seeing the example that you said in 2019. So it was coded T1, I think correctly, T1C1. It was our subadult tiger, which went to and from Maharashtra to Telangana back, and recorded a kind of a 3,000 kilometer journey, which was kind of unprecedented.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, and imagine it went through hundreds and hundreds of villages. It crossed roads, it crossed canals, maybe rivers. Earlier this year, there's another tiger which went from Madhya Pradesh to Odisha, similarly crossing rivers, highways, railway tracks,
Why do
villages,
they do this?
searching for a new place to kind of establish their own territory or looking for a mate. So, and this is happening everywhere.
Isn't it rather sad that you go out and you end up in a place that's really hostile to what you need?
So, just like in our society, we have the rich and the poor. So, there are rich tigers and poor tigers. So, the rich are within the tiger reserves, the poor are outside tiger reserve. Any green patch, dense green patch, free of human disturbance, they can find. It can be a sugarcane field, it can be a farmland, it can be just anywhere.
What do you mean when you say poor tigers? What makes them poor?
Lack of space, because see, we constantly harbor this number every cycle. We do this tiger census every 4 years, once in every 4 years, and every 4 years we need bigger numbers. So like this time our upper limit is 3,925, the lower limit is 3,167.
Yeah, that's why it's like three and a half.
So in the next cycle I'm sure it would cross the 4,000 mark.
But shouldn't we stop growing our tiger numbers?
See,
I mean, where are we putting them? Where can they possibly go?
yeah, that's the biggest challenge. Even places where there were no tigers, we were having a tiger boom. So places like in Terai, in Pilibhit, in Valmiki.
Yeah, in Bihar.
Yeah, you have these viral videos coming every month. A tiger sitting on a village wall or in
Yeah.
somebody's roof. And it's both scary and kind of unmanageable for the forest department. It's a huge challenge. So one way we constantly demand this growth, but we are not looking at the home of tigers, the habitat. Do we have that space? Is it sustainable? So those questions never come in our society.
I think also, while some, obviously, I'm not such a scholar of tigers, and I'll say it up front here, but working in certain parts of the country, I've met young people in their 20s who've said, "Oh, you want to see a tiger? Just come to my village," because the tiger comes between 4 and 5 every day. Just sit in my house and I'll show it to you. And I think as more and more tigers come in, it's more and more dangerous for people to go about their everyday lives, as well as people who want to live very different lives from what their parents did when they could actually manage the tiger that was around.
Yeah.
Like Sundarbans, a lot of the young kids talk about how difficult it is for them to come back from tuition because of the occasional tiger, which may or may not be there. But the idea that you might have this encounter scares their parents.
See, as suggested, we are already reaching a threshold. But there is also scope of relocation if we manage our tiger reserves well. So there are a number of tiger reserves which are near empty.
Like Panna used to be once upon a time.
Yeah, once upon a time, Panna was cleaned up by poachers. Sariska was cleaned up by poachers. But we have got back the tigers there, and it's a wonderful initiative both from the Madhya Pradesh Forest Department and the Rajasthan Forest Department. It's fantastic. So likewise, in the northeast, in Mizoram, in Nagaland, Arunachal Pradesh, bordering Assam, North Bengal, Odisha, Jharkhand, there are tiger reserves which are near empty, and there is a huge scope. If we can bring back the prey, the tigers will come back there. So there is also hope, but yeah, places where tigers have boomed and have almost to carrying capacity, it's very difficult now to manage. I don't know what's the solution kind of thing, but obviously we have to think of spaces. We have to concede space for wildlife. If we want wildlife, we have to concede space.
What about space inside of our imagination?
Yeah.
I mean, shouldn't we be imagining conservation in a whole different way rather than, only metrics? You mentioned poor tigers and rich tigers, and poor tigers are the ones who have to go out desperately looking for food or a mate or whatever, or more territory. And then you have those tigers that are actually officially protected and so on. So shouldn't we look at what to do with existing poor tigers and kind of change the ecosystem around them?
Yeah, it looks good on paper, but see the issue which the conservationists, the forest department are all talking for many years now are on the landscape conservations, the wildlife corridors.
Yeah,
As earlier I
exactly.
said, our tiger reserves are small islands in the sea of
Absolutely.
humanity.
Just like elephant corridors.
Yeah. So unless we find a solution of interlinkages of the smaller tiger reserves, it will get increasingly difficult to manage big cats. Just not tigers, elephants, leopards, and most of our megafauna, as we say. Like as a journalist, I'm saying we celebrate numbers. The day the forest department will show a lower number, we will be the first one to criticize them that they are not doing their job right. So it's a paradox kind of thing. So
I get that. Yeah, I hear you.
Works, yeah.
I hear you. So basically, if I hear you right, we need to stabilize these numbers.
Yeah.
Kind of get a greater level of equity for tigers, so to say, and equally make sure that people don't pay, especially the poor don't pay, or the
Yeah,
forest dwellers don't pay a price.
so yeah, holding on to these numbers is the sustainability challenge.
But we shouldn't increase it.
We shouldn't even think of making this almost 4,000 to 5,000 in
So
10
we
years
should,
of.
yeah,
We should,
change our conservation mindset completely
yeah, yeah,
and switch from numbers to a quality index.
yeah. So we can hold only a certain number. We should be happy. We should celebrate this success and hold on to this success. Better manage because of the tolerance of people, not urban people, but the tolerance of
Yeah.
the rural, the people who live along wildlife. We have managed this success.
Yeah, absolutely. Because urban people
Huh.
are constantly beating leopards to death,
Yeah.
compared to other people who are trying to find a way to coexist partly out of desperate resilience.
Yeah, we have no idea of how difficult, how challenging it is to live alongside wildlife. We just go as tourists, click pictures, come back and put them on social media. But the reality is very different of living with wildlife. And
Yeah.
this success is unprecedented in a global context. Huh? Even the census we do, the tiger census we do, is the biggest census anywhere in the world. Um, but these are things which are we should celebrate. We shouldn't, and we should hold on to this success.
I have a question, and that question is that shouldn't we try relocating, to say Buxa or whatever? I've just taken a random example. Do you think relocating these surplus Tarai tigers and other such tigers, do you think it's even possible? It almost sounds like a madcap scheme.
No, no, no. It's possible. We've within the country we have success with, as you said, Panna, Sariska.
Yeah.
We're doing it in Rajaji from Corbett. If we have a good prey, the first is the protection and the prey base.
Yeah, the prey base.
Now, also we have to keep in mind we have a huge staff shortage in all the tiger reserves.
Yeah, that's why I was thinking it's
Yeah.
quite a crazy.
Yeah, so and even now we are thinking of not just within India, but we are thinking of sending tigers to Cambodia because Cambodia now wants to bring back its tiger population.
But they didn't have the same tiger species.
No, see, the species classification is a different ball game now.
But it's true, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
the genetics of the tiger that India might send is very different from the tiger that went
That's up
extinct.
to different school of science. Huh?
Yeah, but it's a fact
This
that they-
subspecies is is a
they
different podcast altogether.
I agree, but it is not. They don't have. We are giving them not the identical animal that they lost.
But well,
I mean, let's face it.
Yeah, I'm not the scientist to comment on this, but yeah, Cambodia and India are holding
Well, how
talks for
many
the.
tigers can we donate to Cambodia?
I don't know that, but talks are going, and the Cambodia is very. They have visited Panna. They have visited other parks in central India in the last year, and we are just waiting for Cambodia to make a good prey base, increase their protection, and maybe it would be the first kind of tiger from India which will
Yeah, I mean,
be airlifted.
sure enough,
Yeah.
sure enough. I mean, I'm unable to think through this very lucidly because to me the loss of a whole genetic animal is a loss which is difficult to really completely offset by another tiger which is not which is not the same tiger. But I guess I guess we have to kind of think more pragmatically in an era when we
Yeah.
actually have too many tigers.
Yeah, like cats, your house cats and dogs. The tigers are just like how you provide a good home, you provide food, it will do really well.
So we might send some to Cambodia and we might relocate some, but the ones that are doing well in tiger reserves or outside will certainly, have cubs, and then we'll have more cubs,
Yeah.
and then we'll have more cubs.
Yeah.
And don't you think this is Hobson's choice? Because of course we want them to have cubs and flourish, and it's a matter of great pride that we've come to these numbers when the tiger was near extinct. On the other hand, it's almost like we're on a treadmill and now we can't stop all these tigers from growing, and the only way to do it is to be very cruel and be very wrong ethically and morally and
That's one way of
so on.
thinking, but you never know what nature has in store for us. Nature has its own checks and balances.
Well, I hope not a climate crisis balance, that you have a flood and you manage your population balance. I mean, is there a more scientific thought that's happening?
No, I'm not aware of that, but species do have checks and balances when their population rises.
Yeah, and also because I think we're rethinking in the era of climate crisis, and
Yeah.
which kind of brings me to a question about these enormous forest fires that we're seeing.
Yeah.
You know, it's not the first time this year. Everyone's elites talk about it when their hill homes are polluted, which they go to escape their plain homes, which are also lavish but polluted or too hot. And what does that do to tigers? Is there any
To
data?
tigers, yeah, no. See,
And the prey base.
yeah, you brought a very interesting question. Is the climate what is affecting is the nature of the forest. So especially grasslands, the palatable species for herbivores.
Yeah.
That's changing. So there's a lot of exotics which are flourishing at the cost of native species. So there's less and less for the herbivores, from deer to the elephant, to eat. So they are migrating towards more juicy agricultural produce. So that's why you see so much of animals now in farmlands. And who comes following them? It's a carnivore like the
Yeah.
tiger, huh?
Yeah.
And that is the imminent conflict, huh? So now deers, the nilgai, the other deers, the elephants have all gone used to your paddy, the rice. They find it much tastier than what they could find in the grasses in the forest. And who follows the deer? It's the tiger.
So actually, climate change is also the way it's changing the nature of the forest. It's actually driving more conflict.
Yes, absolutely. In a way, it's driving.
What about migration upwards, northwards? Any kind
Yeah,
of data
absolutely.
on that?
New camera trap data has found that the tiger is coexisting with the snow leopard at very high altitudes, in Bhutan and
Well,
Sikkim
that's
and all.
ridiculously crazy.
Yeah. So
So there'll be competition, right?
so
For
both our national animal and our national bird have been going up altitude wise.
yeah.
Yeah. Hmm.
So that's a very scary thing to have
I don't
happened.
know it's scary or not. It's how nature kind of plays. There are a lot of species which have done much better outside their home range. And there are many examples, like the Chinese deer or even our Nilgiri tar. The Nilgiri tar, there are more Nilgiri tars in New Zealand than we have in the Nilgiris.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know what to say for
Yeah,
that
yeah,
because, New Zealand is, an island, and there must be
yeah,
so many endemics there, and you kind of wonder if the Nilgiri tar is actually desirable or not. There's a question of being naturalized,
yeah,
but there's the other question of ecologically desirable, and
yeah,
there are so many questions to talk about, but let's just stick to the tiger.
yeah,
And I have so many questions to ask you, and I'm trying not to be greedy.
yeah,
But the other thing I think about is, both of us enjoy bird watching
yeah,
a lot, so we don't really go out specially to look for a tiger
yeah,
ever, even if we're in deep tiger country. It's quite
yeah,
rare.
yeah,
But a lot of people will only rush, and there's a whole concept that used to be called tiger cola.
yeah.
And what do you do about that? Because that is what gives the money to the forest department, also private lodges, etc., in order to be able to do other kinds of conservation. I mean, there's Machli, who died, that old tigress from Ranthambore, and she was kind of this iconic. She's really the rich old baroness amongst tigers.
Yeah.
But she brought in a lot of money for Ranthambore, and they could do a lot of stuff. But tigers are disturbed by things like this.
It's not only tigers. The management is also more now. More time goes in managing tourism than doing their actual job of conservation.
Is that true?
Yes, obviously. Especially in parks like Kana or Ranthambore, which are the high-profile tourism parks. So, wildlife tourism, apart from the birding, which has really caught on these days, is tiger tourism. And let's be honest about it. People who go to national parks don't want to see anything else. They don't just want to doesn't want to enjoy nature. They just want to see a tiger. It's like shopping. Is gone for shopping or taking. For those things, there are other places to kind of do it. So that mindset has to change. Obviously, tourism also has to be sustainable. Has to be a better designed. There are in Ranthambore there are too many kind of lodges. Over 300,
But
500
it is
lodges.
the most gorgeous sight in a jungle to
Yeah,
see a
absolutely.
tiger. I mean,
Absolutely.
it
There's
is
no doubt about it.
unforgettable. I
Yeah,
think it is
absolutely.
for
That
an
is,
urban
yeah.
person
Hmm. Yeah,
like
paying
me
that
or for
kind of
you.
money now, it's become very expensive. So sometimes I say that ecotourism, what is eco in ecotourism? Is it ecological or is it just pure economic? Uh,
So, what do you think it is?
it is economic now. Uh, so it has to balance it out with ecological.
Well, I mean, even
Though the department has tried lots, they have opened a lot of other routes and all, but it's the social media is also driving this. Let's be honest, this
yeah, social media has really
mm,
changed what we seek
yeah,
in our holiday
yeah.
experiences,
So
But even if I put that aside,
yeah,
I mean, I, I kind of wonder, tiger is such a magnificent beast from a more elite and privileged point of view, at least,
mm,
that you can actually be in a vehicle and you can actually see it
mm,
and you can enjoy it. I
mm.
mean, there's no doubt that it's out
Yeah.
of the world. So
And also the rich tigers love it. They come and pose and they are
yeah, and
rolling.
they acclimatized,
Yeah,
but they're also revenue spinners, don't you think? That enable other conservation to happen, because if you don't have enough resources and the forest department actually doesn't,
hmm.
then what? Then who else but a star creature?
But I have second thoughts on it. Is it really helping conservation? So why are still our reserves understaffed?
Yeah.
There are so many vacancies for forest guards.
Well, that's the same as the pollution control boards in our country, totally understaffed.
Yeah, understaffed. So is it helping truly conservation? Or we have to recalibrate how this works. Yeah, tourism is needed. I'm not saying I'm not against tourism or thing, but what kind of tourism? Tourism also has to be designed in a very proper manner. Right now, it's like 60, 40 jeeps crowding over an animal. It's a traffic jam, and it's as bad as your rush hour traffic in the city to see a tiger.
Yeah.
That's why I now hardly go to a tiger reserve.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, that's of course true.
Yeah.
But I mean, on one hand, we don't have enough people
Mm.
to look after forests. On the other hand, we have these forest fires. There's certain forms of solutions, whether you kind of try to monetize a piece of something and that has an ecological cost.
Yeah.
So, will you sacrifice a machli so that the rest of Ranthambore can live in peace? I think those are the kinds of thoughts that come to me.
Yeah, because also a lot of the tourism infrastructure has come on corridor land, spaces
Yeah.
where the wildlife would have used to to disperse. So there are pros, there are cons. It's a very gray area. So where do
Yeah.
you draw the line?
Yeah, and it's difficult to draw a line because it's so emotive.
Yeah,
One of the reasons tigers disappeared, whether it was Sariska or anywhere else, was poachers. And we had so much drama in the media. We would all, as much younger people, be reading. It was quite horrific. And now that those stories are not reported, you're a journalist. So are they not reported because there's no appetite for them, or are they not reported because poaching is coming down? What's the status of tiger poaching?
there is always the threat of poaching. And we have done well to kind of control this menace of poaching, but it's a threat. Once in a while, the authorities do catch thing. It's one of the big markets. Wildlife trade, crime is as big as guns and drugs. So the threat will always be there. It's a huge threat. That's why my worry is about the poor tigers. They can just go. just like that. Just
How come they haven't yet gone? Because these horrific stories have been going on, and then we had the pandemic where it was impossible to even monitor the health and status of
yeah.
these tigers. So how come poachers didn't go out and get them?
Partly because people are now more aware of even in rural areas, people know and the fear of the law has gone kind of stronger. So I think the poaching threat will not be eliminated anytime sooner. It will remain a huge threat, and it's going to be very difficult to manage this 1,000 plus tigers which are outside.
Which is basically a third of the tigers in India are outside the tiger reserves.
Yeah, and again, just like I said before, we will be the first one as journalists to question why the numbers have dropped, uh, without looking at the reality of habitat, the reality of the management challenges, and all these things. Just like we are talking about human-wildlife conflict, and I think that's a phrase not really justified, because there are thousands of people we are killed on the roads daily. So are we saying a human road conflict or something? These are accidental things. These are things happening to circumstances. And we must look at a much bigger picture when we are commenting on natural history, we're commenting on wildlife, commenting on tigers. Let's just not look at just numbers and numbers and numbers, but let's also look at habitats which basically will help sustain our natural heritage. It's just not wildlife, it's our heritage, and we should be proud of this.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, Anindo, thank you so much
Thank you.
for reminding us that let's not look at numbers. Let the numbers be lower, but let the heritage, the wildlife heritage, be richer and stronger, and support, greater biodiversity. And let's protect the tigers where they are. Let's not let's not just keep trying to score more and more.
Yeah,
Thanks so much for this conversation
most welcome.
and
Thank
your
you, Vice.
time.
Yeah.